Welcome to volume 1 of how to edit the photos. Today I'm covering how to edit dark tones for Instagram. I'm going to show you how to take this photo and turn it into this. Alright, let's get started. First, I'm going to go ahead and reset the settings so we can start fresh. And we're going to go ahead and crop it. Instagram's portrait mode 4x5, so we're going to hit this 4x5 here and find the spot that we want. I think I'm going to put it right about here, and let's make sure we straighten it. Always want to make sure photo's straight. Okay, that looks good. Next, I'm going to head over to the contrast tab and add some contrast so we can get these heavy shadows. Let's bring this up to about plus 26. That looks good. Then we're going to head over to the highlights and we're going to drop the highlights down so we can get a little bit more detail in these shadows. Let's bring that to about right there, minus 27. And the shadows, we'll bring those up to about, let's say, plus 26. Head down to the whites, and we're going to bring the whites up because that's going to make this silhouette pop really nicely on this white background. So I'm going to bring this up to about 50 or so. That looks good. Okay. And we're going to head down to the blacks next and bring that to, let's see, about minus 26. Okay. Next we'll head down to the clarity and we'll bring the clarity up a little bit, but not too much for this photo. We'll leave it about 3. Next thing we're going to want to go to is the vibrance and saturation. What I usually do is I'll drop this down. Let's go about like here, and then I'll bring the saturation up. That's going to give us some color without this overly vibrant looking color. Kind of has a nice effect, so I'll usually drop this in a negative and then bring this up to find something I like. Well, right there was good. Go plus 56. That's looking good so far. So the next thing, one of the most important things in your edits is going to be the tone curve. Your tone curve might look like this, but I prefer to use this. Gives you a little bit more freedom. So we're going to drop a few points here. Alright, so we'll start at this point. And what this is going to do, this is what kind of gives me that signature faded look. If you overdo it too much, you're going to clip the shadows and it's going to look horrible like that. So you don't want to overdo it. We'll bring this one up to about right there. I like that. And then second point, we'll bring this one down a little bit. Okay, that's going to give it these nice dark, deep shadows. This one, I'm not going to change this too much. Probably just bring this up very slightly, make it a little bit brighter there in the highlights. Okay, this one, we'll probably bring that up just slightly. Actually, let's bring this down here. Okay, and this, we're gonna bring this down a little bit to about like right there. Okay, that's already starting to look a lot better if we hit this before and after by pressing the slash key. Yeah, that's already a huge difference. Okay, so next we're going to head into the RGB tabs, but we're not going to change too much on this. This is going to be some really minimal changes on here. If you do too much, it's just going to look ridiculous and you're going to have this like, wow, it's amazing. So So this, I'm gonna bring this one down a little bit, right about there. I'm getting this little bit of like green tint in the shadows. This one will probably bring this one down a little bit, just very, very slightly, right about there. And that one will leave where it is. Greens, the blue might actually be good. Let's see, another point here and here. Let's go right about there and then bring this down about right there. Okay, and then the blue we're actually going to leave where it's at. We're not going to change the blue for this photo. Next we'll head down here, and I'm not really liking this blue sky color, so I'm actually going to desaturate that quite a bit. So let's bring it down to about like -40 or so. About there is good, and then we're going to drop the highlights of the blue as well. So we'll go down to luminance, and we'll bring that about the same. Okay, that looks a lot better. And maybe we'll adjust the hue a little bit of the blue as well, just a tiny bit. Let's do that. Very slight change. So next, I'm not gonna mess with the split toning for this photo. We'll leave that one alone. We're gonna head down to the vignette. I always like using a lot of vignette. It really gives it that dark, moody feel to it. But again, you don't want to overdo it. So we'll bring this down to about 30 or so, or actually right there is good, -28. And the midpoint we'll bring down about like right there, -36. Roundness we'll bring up about here, +27, and then the feather we're going to bring all the way up to 100, so it has this really smooth, seedy lines of the actual vignette. And highlights we'll leave alone for this photo. Next we're going to come down to the calibration here, and we're going to bring the reds down to about -17, and then we're going to do the same thing for the green. I'm going to go the same amount, -17. And then the blues, we'll bring the hue for the blues to about -15. But for the saturation on this one, we're going to bring up to +15. That gives it a little bit of this teal color. Okay, it's already starting to look really moody already. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the graduated filter here, and we're going to bring this up about right there. And what that's going to do is that's going to affect everything up to here. And you can feather it out by bringing this up or down, but right about there is where I like it. Okay, reset those, and we're going to bring the temperature up for this. A little bit of warm to contrast on all these blues we have. And bring the saturation up a tiny bit, not a lot. You don't want to overdo it. Let's bring that down. Right there looks good. And we'll bring the shadows up slightly on that. Okay. Next, I'm going to go back up to exposure, and I want to bring this up slightly. 0.05 looks perfect. Okay, the next step we're going to want to do is actually remove some of these distracting elements. Normally, I would do this on Photoshop, but for the sake of it being a Lightroom tutorial, we'll do it here. So any little things that distracts your eye from the main subject of the image, like I just don't like this little bright part of the rock. So I'll just get rid of that. And then maybe these little ones down here, I'll get rid of that. And then maybe this little one right here too. So it's a really tedious process, but it's worth it in the long run. You have a much cleaner image. Let's get rid of this. Okay, and then this line right here, I don't really like that either. So let me go ahead and draw up like this, and I'll go about right there. And we'll move to a little bit more of a desirable spot to make it look a little bit better here. Okay, that looks good. And then we'll get this last part of the little line right here. So I'll start from here and I'll draw this down like that. And then we'll bring this over here to a spot that fits much better. Okay, and next we're gonna want to take the adjustment brush, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of some of this color that bleeds in on this rock here. So we're gonna go ahead and reset these settings, and we're gonna go down on the saturation, maybe about -50. And we're just gonna paint over this whole structure here. That looks good. And we'll bring the clarity up on that a little bit. That's starting to look much better. Down a little bit more on the saturation. And up a little bit more on the clarity. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to zoom in on his shoes right here. And I just like to make these pop because I think it just adds that little bit of extra something. So we're going to drop the saturation on this, get rid of the blues in his shoes, and we're going to bring up the highlights in this. So we'll just go ahead and we'll paint the shoes here. This doesn't have to be exact because it's such a small part of the image, but just paint along the shoe there. Okay. Drop the saturation quite a bit more on those, and then up the highlights. We bring up the whites on those. And a little bit of exposure. There we go. Alright, so that's already looking a lot better. And then I would go in here and I remove all these dust spots from my dirty camera sensor. Alright, now I think we'll go back into this, and I want to bring this up just a little bit more. Bring the shadows up just a little bit more. I'll go with your brush and I'm going to sharpen this a little bit. Go like 30, just to make sure this is nice and super crispy. And then I'm going to do the same for this too, make sure that silhouette is very nice and crispy. And then we'll scroll down to the actual sharpness tab. And I'm going to want to hold Option and go to the masking. And what that's going to do is, normally this is saying everything in this photo is going to be sharpened. But if you drag this, only the lit up parts are going to be sharpened. So you get rid of stuff that doesn't need to be sharpened. So about like that. Then you can bring it up, and all it's going to do is sharpen everywhere you see the white outline instead of the entire image. You just get the nice edges there. Alright, so that's looking good. This was the original image, and now we have this. Nice dark tones, moody shots of San Francisco. And that's about it. Let me know what other kind of edit styles you'd like to see posted. Drop me a comment, let me know. Thanks for watching.